Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of Tate's Takes. We are entering in, Alex, I should have asked you this before the show. We're entering into week 5 of the NFL season.
Yes.
Good. Okay. Yeah, I got it right. I was like, I'm a little discombobulated because of the big OU win today. I'm coming down from the adrenaline rush. I was really high on it earlier, coming down a little bit. So I'm kind of fading after this. A good nap is probably what I need. But episode 6, we had some big college football today. And so far in this season, week 5 of the NFL coming up, we will talk all about it. But I wanted to start with the OU Texas game. Oh, and I am at my sister's house. So shout out to my sister for letting me stay here. She's going to watch my dog while I take a trip on my fall break. And that is why the scenery looks a little different for me today. But OU Texas, here was my biggest takeaway of the game and why it was such a big win for OU was the program is going to be fine. So when Lincoln Riley left, and I thought a lot about this today. The closest feeling I experienced to Lincoln Riley leaving, and the closest thing to it that I could come up with was when Kevin Durant left. Now, Kevin Durant leaving was a total surprise. No one really saw that coming. We had been to the conference finals the year before. We had been to the finals in his tenure at OKC, but no one saw that coming at all. Lincoln Riley, it wouldn't have been a huge surprise if he had gone to the NFL. I think, he had been talked about for the Dallas Cowboy job before McCarthy. If, the Raiders had hired him or the Vikings or someone like that, I don't think anyone would have thought anything of it. And I don't think it would have been a total surprise. But what was such a gut punch was that he left for another college football program and he brought Caleb Williams with him. Now, Alex, you may talk some about the negatives. I'm going to be honest, if someone offered me 5 times my salary and a house to work in LA, it would be pretty hard for me to turn it down. So, I've talked to some friends, don't feel too bad about it. And then on the Caleb Williams front, you know, it just made sense because he wants to be coached by Lincoln Riley, be the number 1 pick, win the Heisman, et cetera, et cetera. And to be honest, if someone offered me the same salary and a house to live in LA, I'd probably take it because LA, it's just love LA. My sister has told me since I was 14 years old, she's seen me living in LA. It's like everybody knows I'm a California guy, so anyway. I don't really blame him. I know there's a lot of bad feelings about him leaving. My dad probably going to hate that I said that I'm not mad at him for leaving. He's very, very frustrated, but it was just such a gut punch to lose someone that is viewed as such a brilliant offensive mind and is a brilliant offensive mind. The program was in a really good spot. We had been to the playoffs multiple years. We had Baker Mayfield win the Heisman. We had Kyler Jalen almost won the Heisman. Kyler won the Heisman. All of those guys play in the NFL now, where we're just becoming this quarterback factory at OU. It's a lot of fun to watch week to week. And last year, the first year with Venables, after the gut punch, not only were we not a very good team, but the biggest rivalry in college football, the OU Texas weekend, we lose 49-0, which is really, if you ask any Sooner fan, they would be fine losing 11 games if the one game we won was OU Texas. Most of the people would say, yeah, as long as we beat Texas, it's fine. So watching that game today, why I was so encouraged is that stop at the goal line was my favorite moment of the game, even more so than the touchdown to win it, because that wasn't a play we could make with Lincoln Riley. And I know some USC fans personally who are frustrated with that defense. They still don't have a defense out there in USC. The coordinator probably should be fired and Lincoln Riley won't do it. And we play at OU such a physical brand of football. And watching that today, the defensive line was phenomenal. I thought the offensive line held up against a very talented Texas team. We were able to run the ball enough. We brought the wood. That was what my dad kept saying. We brought the wood on these tackles. We're great in open field. Like I said, the stop on the goal line was just, I couldn't remember the last time OU had a stop on the goal line like that, especially on 4th and 1, where they had the play. They, Ewers, who played a great game, hit the receiver in stride on the screen pass. We were able to make a tackle, get the stop, end up winning the game on a great drive because of, I thought it was some really, really excellent clock management, both at the end of the first half and at the end of the game by Venables. Some poor clock management on Texas's behalf at the end of that game, where I thought the running play on 3rd down before they kicked the field goal to get the 30 points was kind of a weird call. Now, if they could have broke it and got a 1st down, he would have looked like a genius. But because we were able to stop the clock and still have a minute 20 left, we were able to obviously have the time to go back and score. So it was such a big moment for OU because it just looks so grim last year, and that we look like a team that today I'm more confident we're at least building a program that can compete with the top powers in college football, being the Georgias, the Alabamas, the Michigans. I think the team we are building, if we're not even already there, will be more competitive in these bowl games, these playoff games than what we had even with Lincoln Riley, because of the line of scrimmage, because of the defense. And like I said, it may not be as exciting to watch week to week because we don't light up the scoreboard like they do. Caleb Williams, they score 50 points a week, but the other team scores 45. So it's kind of the trade-off where it's a little bit more exciting week to week. I was watching Cincinnati a couple weeks ago, and it wasn't a very exciting game to watch if you're not an OU fan, but the way we are playing and the brand of football, I think, really bodes well moving forward as far as being able to compete at the highest level. And I think it was just, no one should feel anything but elated as an OU fan, not only for the win today, but also the program moving forward. I think is in a really good spot. And if you look at Brent Venables, I don't know that he can get a better job than the OU job. I don't know that he considers himself an NFL guy. I don't know that anybody would. Maybe, like I said, I thought he did a wonderful job today. I think he is an excellent head coach. But I also don't think he would be the guy that, if Nick Saban retired, Alabama would call. They'd probably call Deion Sanders or even Lincoln Riley. I don't know that he'd be in line for any of the very, very limited number of programs that would be considered better than the OU job. And I don't know that he's an NFL guy. So I think OU is in a really, really good spot moving forward. And I'm just thrilled. And I know we don't talk a lot of college football, and I know this is a little more regional than some of the analysis that we give. But after that win today, me and Alex talked about it. We just had to go over the game, and just what a day for OU and for the program and for the Sooners. And moving forward after Lincoln Riley, we are going to be fine at worst, if not even better, I think.
Yeah, I second all of that, especially talking about Lincoln Riley. Clearly, yeah, it sucks that he took Caleb Williams
Right.
on track to get a back-to-back Heisman. Like, he's playing out of his mind. But the good thing is he also took Alex Grinch with him, and that opens up a little bit more of like, oh no, we can actually play defense. We can actually stop teams. We're allowed to tackle correctly.
Right. Yeah. And
That might have never been the case, but for the OU teams under Lincoln Riley, it was just about scoring points. And as you know, offense sells tickets, defense wins championships. And for OU and Sooners all over the country, the Red River rivalry has always been a quasi championship game,
right.
middle of the season. And like you said, if we went 1-11 and the only game that we here was we beat Texas, it's a
We
great,
feel okay. Right.
be happy with that year. So I really liked what I saw today. Wanted to I wanted to kind of talk about what this kind of game means for the program moving forward. So Venables is on his second year, and he had some people come in through transfer portals, start filling out his roster with a little bit more depth, a little bit more athleticism. And now all you can hope to do is be a 4-star recruit picked up by OU, because you know that this team has got one more year, I believe, in Big 12, right?
Right.
That's this next year is the year that we go win a championship. This next year is the year that we destroy the rest of the Big 12, and we actually go maybe with a new QB, because I love Dylan Gabriel. He played well today. I
We
don't think
have a very highly recruited rookie or freshman underneath Dylan Gabriel who may come in and be even better. And to that point, and this is kind of based on what you're saying, the program moving forward, people may not know this. We had our best recruiting class that we've had in a while, and a better recruiting class this year with Venables than we've ever had with Lincoln Riley. And that's really important in college football. And I wanted to float this by you because this is totally contradictory for what I said in the NFL. Because we talked a lot, I think it was last week, about maybe it was 2 weeks ago, about how the NFL has moved away from defense and you have to almost have an offensive head coach, especially with a young quarterback. Could I convince you that in college it might be the opposite? Because Nick Saban, defensive mind, best coach in college football today and probably historically. Venables, great defensive mind. OU definitely on the up and up. I think in college football, the recruiting is so important and the offense is more than the NFL, which is a little bit more of the X's and O's, Andy Reid designing plays to scheme guys open. In college, it seems a little bit more of let's just get the ball to our playmakers, to our 5-star recruits on the edge, receiver and running back, and the defenses aren't quite as talented usually, where the schemes tend to work a little better and a little easier. And if you have the offensive line, you can run the ball. If you have the receivers, they'll go catch it. If you have a great quarterback, he'll make some plays. Where is it going to be easier maybe to find an offensive coordinator to stay at the top level, of or close to it, an elite level college offensive coordinator than it would be to find even a defensive coordinator? Because I think that's what we may be seeing with the Venables Lincoln Riley comparison, where the offensive head coach, it's a little bit of a harder job and a harder task to find the defensive side of the ball coordinator, someone that can really come up with plays to stop these mismatches that you face in college football from a defensive standpoint. I think that can be really, really difficult in college football. And Venables seems to be able to do it the way he designs his defense. He lets the middle linebacker kind of roam free and make a lot of plays, and puts, frankly, our best player at middle linebacker. And I think that's something that he's done even before when he was at OU, and then at Clemson, and now again we're kind of seeing that. And then, I think there's a lot of guys who can call a college offense, and I may be underselling that a little bit and not giving quite enough credit to our offense today, but I think in college with the tempo and stuff like that, we may see, and this is just a theory that I have, this is not me, this is not a concrete take like a lot of times that I give, but I think what we may see with Venables is if the offensive coordinators get picked up for head coaching jobs, whatever it may look like, we may have an easier time replacing them than some of the offensive guys have replacing the defensive coordinator on that side of the ball. And, in college football, that is. Like I said, the NFL's like, I know that's really contradictory to what I said about the NFL, but what do you think about that theory?
probably pretty accurate. So the way the NFL set up is already so offensively favored, because they literally are selling tickets based on offense.
Yes.
You go to see playmakers make plays,
Mhm.
So I think that the principle that you have to come from if you're an NFL coach, and this is what I was talking about, is you have to either get more points, which is the object of the game, or stop the other team from getting points.
All
But
right.
go NFL game, you know that the other team is going to get points. Like, the offense is going to get
Right.
points. So a little bit of it has to be, no, I'm going I'm going to go and get more points than them. I'm going to play more aggressively. In college, not so much. In college, we see teams get dominated. We see even great teams have off weeks where they're just not scoring as many points. That brings to mind, Shedeur Sanders with high flying offense at Colorado getting absolutely demolished in
Right.
Oregon.
Right. Yeah.
Whenever you change that and you say, no, we don't exactly have all of the playmakers. Like, yeah, we probably have 2 or 3 amazing players, but the rest of the team, let's face it, isn't really professional level.
Right.
You have to
And
also
that's not a hot take. There's only a handful of guys that, there's how many guys are drafted in the first round and how many college football teams are there? It's like there's not just a ton of elite players. It's like there's levels in college football, like unlike what we see in the NFL, I think.
exactly. And so your dynamic has to change then and say, well, the other team probably has just as many non-professional players on this team starting. So we can just stop them from getting more points.
Right.
And put our guys in a position to do what they can do. Also, the amount of time that quarterbacks have in college to actually throw the ball is almost twice as long on average than an NFL quarterback, which means you're elevating quarterback play a little bit past what would be realistic. So if you model your defense off of NFL defenses, off of, we're going to swarm, we're going to blitz as hard as possible. We're going to take our best defensive player and have them running around the field as opposed to limiting them in one role. Like you're the free safety, you just you do the free safety things, or you're the edge guy, so your only job is to come off the edge. Whereas you could say, no, you're in the middle linebacker, just go make a play, like swarm the ball, figure out what's going on, watch the quarterback's eyes. And I think that kind of mentality allows you to take advantage of the fact that the offenses aren't completely professional. So
Right.
I theory probably holds up.
Yeah. And Venables does a really good job, and our defense does a really good job, A, creating negative plays, B, including takeaways. We do a really good job forcing teams into takeaways. I think we do a pretty good job limiting their best players most of the time, which is really what, in college football, like we talked about, typically you're going to have a couple guys that you target in on that, those are the guys that are going to beat us, right? And if you can slow them down in college football, I think a lot of the time you can win the game. Especially a great quarterback. And I just side note, Ewers kind of won me over today, even though they lost. I thought he had 2 picks on the first 2 drives. One of them wasn't his fault, and he had a fumble later in the game, but he looked better than I've seen him play, I think. And this season has kind of proven that. But I think we're going to see Venables have a lot of success for years to come at OU.
Oh yeah, and I'm putting the entire SEC on notice, because if these two teams come
They
over,
both look good. Yeah, I mean, they both look really, really, really good.
it's
And that
like,
was a really big concern last year. Was like, oh man, if we're a 5-loss team in the Big 12, what are we going to win 4 games in the SEC? It's like that was a big concern. And now it's like, okay, we can play with any of those teams. It's like we may not win is quite as many games year to year as we might in the Big 12 if we're the same, but we'll be pretty close, and we're not going to get our ass kicked.
yeah, for sure. Well, as a final statement on it, Boomer.
Sooner.
All right. So,
What are we moving on to next, Alex?
hey, we're about a quarter of the way. The 17 games kind of throws it off from
It's
being.
hard math to do. It really is. It's very messy math that you have to do with 17 games.
I would guess it would be like 28.5% of the way through the NFL season, but I don't freaking.
It's better than I would have done. Okay.
But what are your biggest bad surprises going in right now?
All right. So my biggest bad surprise, and I'm going to give you my honorable mentions first that I'm not going to talk as much about. My honorable mentions are Denver and Cincinnati, both of which I thought would be significantly better than they were or are so far this year. Denver, I thought would be a lot better than they were last year. They look worse. Cincinnati, I thought was going to win that division, and they have butchered the Joe Burrow injury. And we probably will talk about more about that next week. I think we're really going to dive into the Burrow situation, but they have totally mishandled the Burrow situation. I think to the point where they may even miss the playoffs. So those are my honorable mentions. But the biggest bad surprise to me is actually Bryce Young. And my theme for this segment is I'm definitely going to touch on the rookie quarterbacks because I think they're really, really becoming interesting at this point in the season. But Bryce Young, when you take someone first overall versus any other pick, even the second pick in a draft, right? And this is NBA, NFL. I'm not a big baseball guy, but I'm sure that MLB, it's the same thing. You expect production and quickly, and you expect them to be really a franchise changer if you take them first in the draft. And I was skeptical when they traded away DJ Moore and their first round pick this coming year and additional draft capital because not only was I skeptical about Bryce Young, but the expectations become even higher when you move pieces around to move up to the first spot. And I think, and you obviously traded away. How does DJ Moore look today? You traded away a piece that would really help a rookie quarterback in order to take someone with some concerns. And the concerns have already been validated as he is having a hard time staying on the field. And there wasn't any concerns about his IQ, his accuracy. It was, man, he's awful little. And I think he's going to have a hard time staying healthy for a season, let alone a career. And we are already seeing that come to fruition. So surprise, maybe sort of loosely defined, because this is something that I expected, but I did not expect him to be this injured this early, and I did not expect Carolina to be 0-4 right now. I thought they'd actually be competitive in that division. And I know you're going to talk on the Bucks later, but the Bucks seem like the team to beat in that division all the way. Baker Mayfield, best quarterback in the division, maybe, because it's not Desmond Ritter, it's not Bryce Young, and Derek Carr. It's like
I'll give you a hint. Definitely not Derek Carr. So
it's definitely not Derek Carr. And then so Bryce Young, even when he was on the field, I thought was underwhelming. But when you look at just what I keep coming back to with him is look at who is coming out next year in the draft. And if you don't think you're going to be bad enough to get Caleb Williams, you still have Bo Nix, you still have Drake May, you still have Michael Penix, you still have Ewers, you still have Shedeur Sanders, you still have, to me, four guys at least that I probably would have taken ahead of Bryce Young in a year. So it's sad. I think he's probably a great kid. I think he's probably a really, really high IQ player. And it's, you root for all these quarterbacks to succeed because good quarterback play makes the NFL more fun. But that to me has been my biggest negative. And, they don't even have their pick next year. The Bears have it. So like the Bears may get the first pick in the draft by way of themselves being terrible or the Panthers being terrible, and the second pick in the draft by way of themselves being terrible or the Panthers being terrible. Because it's like those two teams are both in the running to be, the worst record in the league, basically. So that was my biggest negative, surprise so far. And like I said, I didn't have super high expectations, but they have been even lower than I would have expected.
all right, so I like that pick for the biggest negative surprise. I'm not going to talk about Bryce Young, how he's playing just as a facet of him. A lot of people are jumping on. He's small,
Right.
not exceptionally agile, doesn't have the greatest pocket. Like, who cares? It's none of
Right.
that. Because you hit on something exactly right, which is if you're getting a rookie quarterback and you're throwing him into the fire, he's going to need two at least 2 of the following. Oh, hey, I'm getting these things
What was that?
updated. I'm getting fun balloons. But you need at least 2 of the following 4 things. You need an incredible offensive line.
Helps.
Just the one thing, just give him a little bit. You don't have to give him 5 seconds to throw, but instead of 2.5,
Yeah.
2.5, if you can get him 3 seconds to throw, great. You need at least one true number 1 wide receiver. You need a true stud running back to alleviate some of the pressure.
All helps.
What I've been saying, the safety valve for every quarterback is the tight end,
Yes.
always. And what have we seen Carolina do? They gave away their number 1 wide receiver. Did
And who else was on their roster at the beginning of last season?
Christian McCaffrey.
Christian McCaffrey. It's like, you know who would really help Bryce Young right now? TJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey. It's like both those guys, it's like all of a sudden he'd have a lot better season. It's like he would be in a lot better spot, I think, if obviously if they had those 2 guys, that would help him. It's like just so, yeah, they moved on. I don't know, man. I don't know.
They don't have a great line. They gave away DJ Moore. They gave away Christian McCaffrey. They traded away a pick that you could have used this year, which you're hoping that Chicago wins a couple more games so that they don't get the number 1 pick and the number 2 pick.
Right.
If you're bad enough, they get the number 2. You know what I mean?
Right.
And their tight ends have done nothing. So of the 4 things that you need at least 2, they have 0. Right. And not only did they got rid of Deontay Foreman. Huge mistake, because as you mentioned to me like last year,
but he's pretty good,
he's supposed to be taking off after Derrick Henry
Right.
declined, and Derrick Henry never declined. So he was just like a good guy riding a backup spot for a while. So they get rid of him, and instead of bringing in somebody young, they have Miles Sanders, who I've been saying for like 2 or 3 years is
not a Miles Sanders guy. I like Miles Sanders. Okay, you are not a Miles Sanders guy.
He's not. He's past his prime, and it shows. Right, and Chuba Hubbard, who is his backup, and the man, I'm pretty sure, just dips his hands in butter before every single play.
Just side note, Chuba Hubbard's been pretty disappointing to me in the NFL. 'Cause, when he was a freshman at Oklahoma State, I was like, oh, this guy may be a superstar in the NFL. And he just never even repeated that freshman success in college. And, has kind of been, I don't really know what happened to him, but
if he gets out, if he breaks a tackle, if he gets out in space, super explosive.
yeah.
He was supposed to be a guy that could catch a couple of balls, and like I don't know what has happened to him. And then you talk about their tight ends. Have you ever heard of Tommy Tremble? Do you know who that is?
I didn't know who that was.
Most people in Carolina don't know who that is either. He's the number 2 behind Hayden Hurst, who has done absolutely nothing on this team either.
That's all right. Hayden Hurst looked a lot better when Joe Burrow was throwing the ball,
Yeah, exactly. But if you don't have Joe Burrow, you don't have anything. And like, I like Adam Thielen. He's great. I don't think he's a number 1.
He's also like 33 years old now, right? And it's like that's pretty up there in age for a receiver.
The Vikings, with the exception of Kirk Cousins, don't really hold on to pieces if they aren't providing value. And that's why we saw Dalvin Cook get shipped off, Adam Thielen out of there. Like we're seeing a Carolina Panthers team that if they had just taken their spot at whatever they were supposed to draft at last year and not traded away DJ Moore, maybe get a better tight end with that spot. Maybe go and get like, you're not going to draft a running back
And
high.
okay, maybe you still would have gotten Bryce Young, or maybe you would have gotten the guy that was my good surprise that I'm going to go ahead and segue to, in CJ Stroud, who's been awesome, who's been like, he was supposed to be the low ceiling guy of these quarterbacks, these rookie quarterbacks. And he's like about to set the record for most attempts to start a career with no picks. And like he's fourth in the league in yards per game. CJ Stroud is. And the Texans, by the way, aren't particularly great around him, but he's just getting it done. He's out there slinging it. My guy, Nico Collins, is tearing it up out there. He's a big target. Kind of fits almost the tight end role, the number one and safety net, kind of valve tight end. Nico kind of fits almost both those roles a little bit, which is why he's had such a success. But CJ Stroud, and we didn't air these episodes of the podcast. I don't know that I wish I had made this, official somewhere, but Alex will vouch for me. CJ Stroud was who I thought should have went first in the draft. And when Carolina traded that draft capital to get the number one pick, I was like, man, there's no way they're trading that much for Bryce Young, who's undersized. I was like, they got to be taking CJ Stroud. They got to like CJ Stroud, and I know his comp was Jared Goff, basically meaning he's going to be a nice player, but not going to light the world on fire, not be a super high ceiling guy. That has not been the case so far. And they're a fun watch. They were supposed to be one of the worst teams in the league, if not the worst team in the league. They are fun to watch. And that's like I said, they were my good surprise because I did not expect them to be fun to watch. I thought they were going to be an ugly team. I thought Damian Pierce was going to be one of these running backs. It's like 30 carries for 100 yards a game, like really just ground and pound, trying to control the clock. They have a defensive coach off of the Shanahan tree that has been, that's really been quite the coaching tree, if you think about it, the Shanahan tree. But CJ Stroud, has just been totally killing it. And Houston has found their guy at the quarterback spot. They didn't have to wait till next draft. They got, it's like I talked about all the guys I would take ahead of Bryce Young in the upcoming draft. Well, there's only one I would take ahead of CJ Stroud today, and that's Caleb Williams. It's like I wouldn't take any of those other quarterbacks coming out because CJ Stroud is a proven commodity at this point already, in my opinion. I think he's lighting it up. I think he's, like I said, fun. He's making great decisions, getting the ball out quick. He is covering a lot of flaws in that Texans roster, which he just wasn't, the coordinator. And this is why it's so hard to decide, so hard to tell who's going to work in the NFL, because he was not supposed to be the guy who was a flaw coverer, if you will, for a team, But yeah, the Houston Texans down in, South Texas, where I'm from, it's like, what a fun year they're having and what a successful draft pick that was. They didn't do something stupid like trade away DJ Moore, to go get their guy, and they got him anyway. It's like, and they got, we'll see what Anthony Richardson looks like, but I think CJ Stroud is going to be the best quarterback from that draft. I really do.
I would tend to agree. Yeah, he's absolutely lighting it up. I do want to bring us back to my bad take, and
Sure.
in a very fun way. I think it's fun. Who knows? So whatever the Dolphins demolished 70-20 the Broncos, what was their total offensive yards? Do you happen to remember? A random guess.
It was around, this isn't going to be exact, but it was give or take 725 yards offense.
It was 726. Great one.
Thank you.
But the Steelers' total offensive yards this year has been,
Is it less than 726?
or it's 1,052.
So not a lot more. Yeah.
300 yards more across.
You're right. Okay. Well, yeah, that's not good.
It's just not good. And of course, that's Miami Dolphins. Like that game was an outlier. Like,
Yeah,
like
sure.
what has happened to the Steelers? Because I in Pittsburgh, I have to deal with Steelers fans all the time, and I'm quasi getting. I'm
Oh, Steelers fan, yeah.
exiled from the Browns because I don't believe in paying sexual assaulter, the most guaranteed money we'd ever seen up until that point. But Jesus, like Matt Canada, and I don't call for people being fired, like coaches being fired usually, because it's like whatever. Like so many things can go wrong. It's not always the coach. There's like execution. We're paying people millions of dollars to go and toss around this egg-shaped ball. Like, of course, execution isn't going to happen. But whenever there's no execution, it's not because of the players. It's just not. Like, I can't possibly imagine. So Najee Harris, who is supposed to be a stud, has
I'm gonna interject here. Najee is an elite talent. And if you look at his physical characteristics and even the eye test, he should be one of the absolute best running backs in the league still. He is an elite talent still, in my opinion.
how many yards do you think he has rushing right now?
250.
You're wrong by 40. He has 210 rushing
That's
yards,
not enough, man.
4 games, and it's Najee Harris.
Right.
He's incredible whenever he gets going, and you have a sophomore quarterback who needs to rely. It's not, he doesn't have to have like an amazing run game, but he's still figuring things out in the NFL, clearly, because he looks bad. you're you're not going to rely on one of your best offensive talents. Like, what are you guys thinking? Like the Steelers, geez, I just, it's so frustrating because they could be great. Their defense is so good. Their defense alone beat the Browns with Deshaun Watson.
Right.
And if they had any juice to give, like for the offense, they would have done it. It's totally horrible play calling, and I, for one, won't stand for it. I'm joining the chorus. We need to get Matt Canada out of this building.
Right.
Just let the Yinzer down the street call plays for like a half and see if it's not at least 20 times better than whatever we've seen so far.
Right. And to your point, there's a couple things. The Steelers, you didn't even mention Pat Freiermuth, who looks like a good tight end, and George Pickens, who is like, I talked about Najee being elite level talent. George Pickens fits that same description. I mean, he has, if you take his best 4 catches, just highlight film, they rival anybody in the leagues. He's got unbelievable hands and, physically gifted. I mean, they just really have some pieces. And as a Steelers fan, I could, I feel for you because they're just ugly to watch. And I just talked about how fun the Texans are to watch. The opposite of that is what the Steelers are, where it is just hard on the eyes, even in a win, to watch the Steelers right now. It's like, God, man, we can't move the ball. And like, it's a lot of 3-and-outs, and the defense, it's good, but it's like, that's not what you want to see Kenny Pickett do something, instead of just throw the ball away. It's like, man, it is rough to watch the Steelers play right now.
You're hoping for Kenny, to do the Pickett to Pickens, the high every single week. Not
there's so many great lines you could have with Pickett and Pickens on the same team,
Pickett to picks. He's 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions right now on the year.
Such a waste, yeah.
That is not good. So
he hasn't taken any sort of a leap from rookie to second year. It almost looks worse than he did at the end of last year, which is always discouraging when a second year quarterback, ask the Patriots what it's like when your quarterback looks worse in their second year than their rookie year.
Or yeah, whatever year for the let's come together and acknowledge the Patriots suck at this point. We're put that to bed.
Honorable mention disappointing team, the Patriots, but neither one of us had high enough expectations for them to be really disappointing. So they didn't quite make the show, but here we are talking about it a little bit.
As Nick Wild says, McCorkle,
Right.
that.
Yeah, not good. Yeah.
All right. I'll do my quick mention before we get to
Yeah, sure.
segment. Quick mention, positive surprise, which wasn't a surprise to me, you jerks. Yeah, my thing gave me the thumbs up because I was right from the start. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Tampa Baker Mayfield, lighten it up. Absolutely, without a doubt, the best quarterback in the NFC South.
In the division, man. He's the best quarterback in the division. Who would have thought that for the season,
I saw somebody I don't know if it was PFF or some other rankings had him ranked 25th still, and I was like, you guys just aren't using your eyes. We pride ourselves on not being way too analytical on this show. I think our podcast is more just two buddies talking about what they're seeing. And
I don't do a lot of I love stats. People don't know this because I don't do a lot of stat dives in this because I don't particularly like it when shows do a bunch of stat dives. It's like I want to. What are we seeing? It's like if something is really notable, like CJ Stroud having a record, potential record that he's going to break, we'll bring it up. But we don't do just a ton of stats on the show.
No, I bring in the stats to make a point that we all just feel. It's a vibe check. It's just what we're going off of. And the vibe to me is that give this another 4 weeks and Tampa Bay is going to look borderline unstoppable. Next game that we got is coming into Detroit, right? Detroit just got flexed.
Winnable game.
I think that's the first flex the NFL has done this year because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were supposed to be in the hunt for Caleb, which means out of the hunt for literally any win this year. And I think we're going to see a lot more gelling happen. We started to see it. I was just kind of bummed with the running game for the past few weeks, but I think our offensive line is finally starting to get used to their roles, especially Tristan Wirfs moving over to the left. Gedeke, he's doing a pretty good job over on the right side. Cody Mauch, he's still a rookie and he's given good pass protection. So we're looking for him to start opening holes on that line for Rachaad White to start taking off. Where the Colts just signed Jonathan Taylor, so he's not coming down to save us, but that's okay. We don't need him. We're gonna look awesome. I think the connection, the touchdown to the tight end, Cade Otton last week versus the Saints is a great first step to Baker really starting to trust his tight ends because we know he trusts Mike Evans. Mike Evans is still on track to make.
Mike Evans killing it this year.
Yeah, still on track, even with all the Eagles game, still on track to make 1,000 yards this year.
Right.
Win a monster wide
seasons in a row of 1,000 yards, which would be kind of unbelievable, actually.
Yeah, and Chris Godwin looks like a wide receiver one, and he's the number 2. And I just think that as long as Baker doesn't, start getting too antsy with it, but I think the system is set up for him to be not feel like his world is crashing in around on him. He doesn't have to feel like he's the only one that can make all of the plays happen. He's really trusting what kind of looks he's given. He's trusting his offensive coordinator. that plays, there's a healthy mix of, all right, just get it out versus, all right, let's see what can develop downfield. They trusted him with his legs, which is, who would have thought that would ever be a thing? So that's been my pleasant surprise. Well, it's been everybody else's pleasant surprise. It's been mine, known it all along.
Right. So there's a couple things. So me and my dad talks to Baker Mayfield because you can't watch an OU game without talking Baker Mayfield for people that don't know that. But Baker always can throw it. And like that's one of the things I've always defended him on. He always has an arm. He always can sling it around the field. Sometimes he thinks he's more athletic than he is. Sometimes he holds onto the ball, and sometimes he makes bad decisions. So that's kind of been what's gotten him into trouble. But he's healthy and playing well, and the offensive coordinator is doing a heck of a job putting him in situations that they can succeed in. And they haven't played perfectly, to your point on the running game, but there is something to being able to win games when you don't play your best. And the Bucs have really done that once or twice this season. And that is a big deal in the NFL. When you can win a game, kind of steal one where you don't play your best, not everything goes according to plan, and you still come out there with a win, like the Chiefs versus the Jets come to mind. It's like they didn't probably expect to be in a fist fight with Zach Wilson, but you got the win, and it's an NFL, and you're on the road, and any win's a good win, since in the Tampa Bay has been able to do that once or twice. And Baker looks good, man. I mean, he, like I said, looks like the best quarterback in that division, because Desmond Ridder is not an NFL quarterback, probably. Derek Carr, who I defended for a long time, doesn't look very good right now. And Bryce Young, who knows, so I good call on Tampa.
Yeah, poor Desmond Ritter's going to have to start learning Canadian. Of every state.
How much would they be if they just stuck Bijan Robinson at quarterback? I'm going to do my honorable mention positive team. We touched on them a couple times. The Colts, man, got Jonathan Taylor signed. Anthony Richardson looks great when he's playing. It's like they 2-2. They're a lot better than I thought they were going to be. Fun team, man. Texans and Colts, fun teams to watch. It's like they're both fun. So
not looking so great for our AFC South pick. The Jaguars really have to do something in London.
They're gonna be fine. Just hold off a couple more weeks on the Jaguars at this point. We'll talk about the Jaguars. If they get to like 2-4 or 2-5, we'll start being disappointed in the Jaguars. But let's see what happens tomorrow.
All right, Tate. It's that time of year. I have my cardigan on. It's cold outside here. Finally, that means that we've played enough football to make baseless assumptions of who the best teams are in the entire league. So
we are debuting Tate's top 5. Okay, so here is a new segment. We're going to do this maybe every week, maybe every other week. We haven't decided yet, but here is my top 5 teams in the NFL. And just so people know how I am ranking them, it is a combination of who is playing the best today. And also there's an understanding that things can change moving forward. So think my Super Bowl odds, who I think should be the 5 teams who I think should be favored to win the Super Bowl. Okay. At number 5, I have the Miami Dolphins. Defense leaves some meat on the bone sometimes, left a little bit to be desired in Buffalo in particular. That offense is unbelievable. I think Mike McDaniels is one of the brightest young coaches in the league. I think they have some of the best weapons in the league. They have definitely the fastest team. Mostert, one of the fastest running backs, and he's not even their fastest or best running back anymore because Achane is a killer, and he's not even the fastest guy on the team because they have 2 receivers in Waddle and Tyreek Hill who are absolute burners. Number 5, Miami Dolphins. Number 4, the team that beat the Miami Dolphins recently in Buffalo, the Buffalo Bills. And we are not super, this is against what I said in the preseason, but Buffalo has dominated 3 out of 4 games, including 3 games in a row, and the Jets, can we just throw out the Jets maybe as an outlier? Now Buffalo isn't consistent and they lose some games that they should win, and that's just kind of the nature of that team and the nature of Josh Allen. But you gotta give respect where it's deserved, and them just throttling the Miami Dolphins, I thought was a really impressive win, coming off a couple impressive wins in a row, to extend that streak. We'll see what happens tomorrow. This will be kind of a fluid list, but right now I think Buffalo is really, really, really good. For Buffalo Bills. Number 3, a team who has not played to their best ability yet or up to their standard. I still have the Philadelphia Eagles at number 3. They have been able to win every game despite not playing their best football. I think Jalen Hurts will get things turned around. I think there is a little bit of a culture shock when you lose such a great offensive coordinator like Shane Steichen, but I think they still have the roster. I think they have the leadership, both in Sirianni and in Jalen Hurts, that they will get it together. And I think they are balanced enough on both sides of the ball. And on offense, they're very balanced and very complimentary. They brought in DeAndre Swift, who is playing the best football of his career. AJ Brown is still elite, and Devontae Smith is nipping at his heels to take over as a wide receiver 1 in Philly. So I think they get it going. And they're a team that can win multiple different ways. They're a team that can win ugly. They're a team that knows how to win games when they don't play their best. I think Philly deserves to be number 3 still until we see more evidence that they are not the team we expected preseason. Number 2, I have San Francisco. What can you say about San Francisco except for they've been dominant? Alex, that face is why aren't they 1? I'm assuming, right? But San Francisco, how good is Brock Purdy? Why they are not number 1. Brock Purdy has been great, and I don't want to take anything away from what he's done, but he hasn't been asked to do anything particularly difficult yet. They don't ask him to do a lot, and when sometimes in the postseason, when the things get a little tighter, I think he will have to do a little bit more, and I don't know if that'll come back to bite them or not. But what can you say about the rest of the roster? The defense is awesome. The weapons are awesome. Christian McCaffrey is on track to win Offensive Player of the Year. If not MVP, I mean, it's not going to go to anyone that's not a quarterback, so he probably is not going to win MVP. But should he be in the conversation at this point? Absolutely. Number 2, San Francisco. Number 1, Kansas City Chiefs. They lost to the Lions by 1 point without Chris Jones and Travis Kelce on the field. Patrick Mahomes laid an egg against New York, and they still walked away with a win. I think they will get more receiver production as the year goes on. I think they are practicing. They are figuring stuff out in games. I think they usually suit 7 wide receivers because they don't know who the guy is yet. I think Rashee Rice looks really promising. The other guys, Tony and Sky Moore, haven't quite lived up to it, but I think they will get someone to step up other than Travis Kelce. But when you have Patrick Mahomes, you have Andy Reid, you have Travis Kelce, and you have the best defense they have had in the Patrick Mahomes era by a wide margin. They are very, very good on defense, if not great on defense this season, which is not something Patrick Mahomes has had. And yes, Patrick Mahomes will have to play better than he played against the Jets. Patrick Mahomes will have to play better than he's played all season. But I don't have any reason to doubt that he will get it turned around. And that is why I think when push comes to shove, you just can't bet against him. And it's my rule for forever was you don't bet against Tom Brady. And my rule until he retires or ages and drops off a cliff, it's really hard to bet against Patrick Mahomes to me. Chiefs are number 1. Alex, you look like you have something you want to say.
Took the Cowboys loss to the Cardinals hard, didn't you?
I don't trust the Cowboys, and we didn't talk about this game because I didn't want to talk about this game because I don't think the Cowboys are going to do very well in San Francisco. Personally, I know I'm a Cowboys fan, but I am what I like to call a realistic Cowboys fan, and I think that is a hard game. Now, if the Cowboys go and beat San Francisco, like I said, this obviously will change week to week. That will shake things up, but
no,
I don't think it's a team.
All right. As it stands right now, Kansas City is not number 1. Absolutely not.
Have they played the best so far? No. This is my Super Bowl odds.
Did they give up to Zach Wilson?
Uh, I think eight. What they had a defense touchdown, right?
Yeah.
Or at least a safety. So what, 13, 18, something like that? Less than 20, which is what the team scored.
20, exactly 20.
But they had a safety.
Yeah.
So the defense gave up 18.
Okay. You give up 18 points to Zach Wilson. You're not number. I don't care. I just don't care. Like, no, the Chiefs aren't number one right now. It's, I would say the 49ers are clearly number one.
Played the best so far. I'm not going to argue that. That's why I did my list a little differently, because it's not, I didn't want to do who's the best today, because I think that's not the end goal and not what we're talking about. It's who's, that's why I said, I prefaced this whole segment by saying this is my Super Bowl odds.
Okay.
Right? The Niners are playing the best right now, and have played the best through 4 weeks, and I think are going to win tomorrow. And I think we'll continue to say, after tomorrow, I think we will still be saying they have played the best so far.
No, I think that the first off, hot take, I think the Cowboys win it tomorrow. Like, I got a feeling Dak's gonna silence a couple of people, and I'm not a Dak believer, but
I love it.
he's gonna go in. They're gonna drop. He's probably gonna be responsible for about 21 points tomorrow.
Okay.
I believe
And
Dak
how many of those are going to be for the Cowboys?
uh, good one. All of them. But I think the Cowboys go in and win tomorrow. But it doesn't change my perception that the 49ers are far and away number one right now. I also have to say, if the Chiefs played the Dolphins tomorrow, Dolphins beat the brakes off of them. Like, absolutely.
You think I have the Dolphins too low?
Dolphins are too low.
Do
I
you have
think,
the Dolphins ahead of Philly?
yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
I
The
thought you would think I had Philly too high too. Yeah.
Dolphins a little bit. Yeah, I don't.
Because like I said, they haven't played particularly well, but they still have found a way to win all their games, which I think is important in the NFL as far as seeding go. All the above.
Yeah,
I think
I
there's a lot of reasons that's important.
yeah, of course. Like you said earlier, anyone's a good win, but I still don't trust Philly. Like, they're still figuring it out at
Right.
this point. Their secondary is a pretty weak point. So, like, if I
That's
took
true. Yeah. They are a little.
Philly against the 49ers, the 49ers would destroy them every single time, which is why I think that either Philly's too
I
high or
have San Francisco ahead of Philly.
Philly's too high or San Francisco's too low, because the disparity in that, and the kind of loss that would happen for Philly, is way too big, I think. But no, I think that Buffalo is probably, like, if you subbed out Buffalo for the Cowboys, I think I might have been a little bit better, because
Yeah.
I still think that what we saw week one with Josh Allen is
It's
more.
always on the table. It's always on the table for him to lay an egg. And that's just
I
the
start,
unfortunate truth of Josh Allen. He has maybe the highest ceiling outside of Patrick Mahomes, but maybe the highest ceiling in the NFL at the quarterback position. And amongst the top 15 quarterbacks in the league, maybe the lowest floor, where it's like he really can get into the turnover bug and, have a rough game.
yeah, and I mean, so at the beginning of the season, I took the Jets to win their division, pretty sure, and I was, I'm sad about
That lasted about 4 plays.
for about 4 plays. Yeah, no, but I have to say that I'm standing by either the Dolphins or the Bills will implode at this point. And
Yeah.
looking like it's going to be the Bills. I know everybody's real happy with how the Bills are playing after week one, but I'm telling you, it's right around the corner.
I
And
still like the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins split that series this season 1-1. I think they beat them the next time they come to Miami. And I think the Dolphins are less likely to lose a game like Buffalo did week 1 against a team that they should clearly beat. So I still like the Dolphins in that division. And I went back and forth a lot on who was going to be 4 and 5, the Dolphins and the Bills. And because the Bills just smoked them, I had to have the Bills ahead of them today. But
yeah,
that's why I had the Bills ahead of them. It's like they just won the head-to-head handily.
so at this week, I'm gonna give you a pass. Next week,
All nice of you.
next week, if the Chiefs continue to not look good, you have to bring them. I'm not gonna let you be a Nick Wright. I'm not gonna let you go down that path of like, well, it's Patrick Mahomes, so who cares? Because
Here's the honest truth. If the San Francisco 49ers played the Chiefs tomorrow, I would think the Chiefs were going to win. And you may look at me like I'm crazy, but I just wouldn't. I would take the Chiefs in the money line. You know what I mean?
I'm telling you, football is a team sport, and as good as Patrick Mahomes is, he can't catch the ball for himself.
Can't catch the ball. Travis Kelsey can, and they have a couple other guys who sometimes do. So it's like,
But I you
I know. I understand.
catch, McCaffrey can catch, and he could just run it down your throat. I'm telling you, 49.
I understand. I understand the complaint. I understand the logic behind it. There is another level some of these athletes can go to, and I saw it with Tom Brady. We saw it with Kobe Bryant and Tiger Woods and some of these just different breeds of cats that come into the sport sometimes. It's like they're just different. And Mahomes to me is just has that extra gear that he can get to in a spot where he needs it. And I know you like to bring up the Tampa Super Bowl. To me, the hot take, I thought the Tampa Super Bowl was one of the best games Mahomes ever played. He hit 2 guys in the end zone in the face mask that would have changed the game. There was 5 injured offensive lines for Kansas City. It was just a bad spot, and I thought he played brilliantly. If you go watch a Patrick Mahomes top 10 plays, and he has a play from that game that was an incompletion that is on every top 10 you'll find a Patrick Mahomes, where he's falling down and hits Tyreek Hill in the face mask and he doesn't catch it. It's like one of the most unbelievable throws you've ever seen. So like I said, hot take. I think the numbers wouldn't suggest it, but that was one of the better games he's played to me, just eye test wise, doing anything he can to make it happen. And I think if he were to do something like that again, we probably wouldn't see 2 guys get hit in the face and not catch the ball. I think it would be a little different outcome.
mean, you say that, if we saw a lot of people get hit in the hands, hit in the chest, hit in the face.
It's been a rough year for Kansas City receivers so far, but they are getting it going. And fortunately for Kansas City, they do not play San Francisco in the Super Bowl tomorrow. That will happen in February. So,
well, we're gonna round this out with, we have to mention it because technically we do talk about the NBA sometimes, I guess. Drew Holiday spent what, 12 hours being Portland Trail Blazer.
yeah, I think he just had a long layover in the airport and got the news on his phone,
Found out via Twitter. Nobody even calls him, tells him, you're going back east.
Right.
What
Say again?
do you think?
Bucks should be the favorites.
Okay.
They have the best player in the conference, and I'd probably have Jokic 1 and Giannis 2, but second best player in the league, one of the clear cut best 2 players in the league in Giannis, Damian Lillard, who's a perfect fit with Giannis, at least on paper. We'll have to see how it works out, but Damian Lillard, just a perfect fit. And I think they have 2 of the best 3 players in that series. I like Jaylen Brown. I like Drew Holiday. I think Damian Lillard is better than Jaylen Brown and Drew Holiday at this point still. Jaylen Brown kind of sneaking up on him and has certainly had more success on his team in the last couple of years, but that's as the second best guy, where Damian Lillard coming off his best statistical season maybe of his career last year, even though Portland did zero to help him get any pieces that would be, suitable for any sort of deep playoff run. So I think Milwaukee going to be awesome. I think it's going to gel really quickly. Actually, I think this is going to be one of those situations where they get off to a hot start, because I think it's just such a fit that I don't think it's going to take any kind of learning curve time. I think they're going to be awesome right away.
No other hope for anybody in the East.
Philly, no. Miami, I would love it to, if I could say Miami has a shot, because I think Jimmy Butler's awesome. The shout out to Jimmy Butler for going emo on picture day, this year. And I love Spoelstra, Pat Riley, the whole Heat culture, I think is really special. I just don't think they have the horses. And I think we talked about this when the trade news first came out for Damian Lillard, but where Miami had the advantage on Milwaukee was late in games. They had a closer in Jimmy Butler, and Milwaukee didn't have anyone who fit that description, with Chris Middleton being past his prime. Damian Lillard is one of the five best closers in my opinion in the league today, where it's like, you ask me who I want taking the last shot or who I want the ball in the hands with 30 minutes or something like that. There's not five guys I would say had Damian Lillard still in the league, So I think I just think it's tough. I think it's a tough matchup for Miami. And I think Boston also matches up better with Miami now that they have Drew Holiday too.
Yeah, I could see it. Over under that Jimmy Buckets does a Naruto run at some point this year.
Over. I'll take the over on that. I'll take the over on that. Who do you have winning the East?
This is a tough one. What would be fun is watching the young players on the Cavs.
Okay. I thought we were a serious show giving serious answers.
Okay. Yeah, it's obviously the Bucks. Milwaukee. Like, what are we talking about?
We have it. That's why we didn't spend more time on this segment for everybody, because it was pretty obvious that we were both going to agree Milwaukee's favorite. We'll see how the NBA starts later in the month. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll talk snippets of NBA here and there, but while the NFL is going on, that's obviously going to be the main focus. But great episode. We want to thank everyone for listening, and hopefully this will come out in time for people to watch before these games tomorrow. And thank you everyone for the support. Boomer.
Y'all
have a good one.